Take 4. Hello everybody, Photojunky here from Photojunky's Drone Zone. In this video, we are going to be replacing an old power supply that was shorting out with a new one. For quite a while, I had a hard drive that would make this click sound, and I thought it was the hard drive itself, and it happened actually quite a while ago, and I had swapped out the old one that was doing it and replaced it with this new one, and lo and behold, after a couple months, the new one started doing the same thing. So I figured out that it's not the hard drive itself, it was the power supply. How did I figure that out? I took another power supply and hooked up everything with the power supply just out of the computer. You don't actually have to mount it in the computer. And I hooked up everything and it didn't do it. I wasn't getting that blue screen of death that I was getting for many, many months with the old, with this power supply here. It actually got so bad that it would happen twice a morning when I was updating my website, and occasionally I would lose everything, literally everything. And if it wasn't backed up online or in a external hard drive, which I recommend everybody do, I would have lost the whole website and would have had to start from scratch. Okay, so we're also going to be replacing or removing this cooler, the CPU cooler, and we're going to be looking at the thermal paste underneath it. And what the thermal paste is a layer of paste that's meant to transfer heat from the CPU, the processor, to this cooler. And we'll see how that looks. The computer is about 6 years old. It's been used to death. These things get dusty, and that's how most power supplies fail. So let's get into it and get going here. First thing we're going to do is just cut all these wires free, and we will try not to cut anything important. Now we're going to take out the 24-pin power supply. It has a clip, so you have to unclip it. You got to wiggle it out. There we go. That's the big one. Next is the small 4-pin ATX power supply. Some have 6 pins, I believe, some of the newer ones. And wiggle it out. Unplug any fans that happen to be powered by the power supply. Some fans are actually powered by the motherboard itself. And there we go. Everything has been separated. And now it's as simple as remove the power cord. Should have done that from the beginning. Unscrew these 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and they are all standard. They're all spaced the same way in these computers. We're going to see just how dirty it was inside. And one warning, don't touch any of the parts inside because they could have capacitors in there which store electricity and you could get a nice jolt. Don't know if these have it, but it's good practice. Well, as you can see, there is a bit of dust in there. Whether that was the problem, I don't know. Usually it is. Usually these things just fry out. So let's move on to the CPU. That is the CPU cooler, and underneath there is the CPU. That is your RAM, your memory, in case you were curious. The CPU cooler looks okay. I don't see any real hot spots or anything on it, which is good. I will take it outside and blow it off with a air compressor. Be right back. To remove the processor, remove this here, and I will try not to drop it. There we are. Don't see any hot spots, and I will inspect this side. This is where all the pins are, and make sure nothing is bent. Now I'm taking a little rubbing alcohol on a rag and I'm cleaning it off as best as I can. And you know what? This does feel a little funny. This might have had a little issue too. And you have to clean it real good. You don't want any residue. So, all right. There's a little arrow on here and a little arrow there. I'm lining them up. I really should be using gravity, but so I can show you. And I will have to just go over this once just because I touched it with my finger, just to make sure there's no oil on it. Now, it depends on what kind of fan you have and what they recommend. This one doesn't recommend anything, so this is how I do it. So put a little bead there, and I put it evenly. I spread it evenly along the entire processor. That's good. One thin layer. And now we put the fan back on. Kind of hard the way I'm doing it from this angle. I'm doing it so I can show everybody. And you got to do this gently. And there we go. Hello everybody, Photojunky here from Photojunky's Drone Zone. So today we are going to put this new power supply in this computer. Power supplies are usually the first thing that go wrong with the computer, in my experience. All right, here it is. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This is the back. A lot of the newer ones now, the cables plug in and they give you a bag full of cables, and we'll get this going. Okay, now I got all the wires that I'm going to need, I believe. They're all plugged in. And let's get it in there and see if I forgot anything. All right, sometimes you have to wiggle these things in there, make room for them, as in this case. And now we will start plugging things in, and it's pretty straightforward. I mean, obviously, get something that looks like this, right? It's not going to fit in something like this, so you really can't go wrong generally. There we go, and that is in place. Now we are going to plug in our 4-pin CPU power supply, and these things come with 8 pins and you can separate them. Some other boards use 8 pins. Now we're going to find our SATA connectors. And we're going to plug them into our drives here. Plug in the power cable here. Flip that switch. Well, let's see what happens. Good sign. Yay, it works.